All right, guys, so for this test, we're going to perform some med ball tosses. And there's going to be a series of three different tosses. Now, this series of tests, we usually test out with our rotational athletes, whether that be baseball, softball, cricket, lacrosse, any athlete that has to produce force from the ground up into a rotational exercise. Now, there's three different segments that we want to go ahead and test out here. A lot of this stems from the baseball and softball athletes being able to create that kinetic sequence through hitting, and we want to make sure that we segment and measure each of those three measurements, whether they're getting their trunk with their hips, and then being able to produce through the ground. So first one that we're going to perform is, first and foremost, from a measuring standpoint, you're going to have to find a 10-pound medicine ball. Now, this is one of these bigger medicine balls, resistance balls. You might have one in your gym that's a little bit bouncier. You might have one that's 5 pounds. You might have one that's 12. No matter what it is, you just want to make sure that you use the same exact ball every single time that you test. You don't want to use a big 10-pound ball and then go use one of those smaller rubber ones. Whatever which one it is that you do, you can toss it. If you could toss it, just make sure that you use that every single time that you measure it out. Now, for the first one, we really want to segment the spine and working through just the trunk. So we want to isolate the trunk down where we eliminate the hips and the legs, and we get an accurate measure of both the right and left side of how far the athlete can can toss the medicine ball. Now, as far as measuring goes, we have the athlete lined up at their 5-yard markers, and then we extend a tape measure out, and then we use the same measurement way that we do with the broad jump, where the athlete, where the ball lands. We measure exactly where that ball lands, not where it bounces to or rolls to. We take that measurement and we record it for both right and left. So the first one, which you're going to see Ian perform, is he's going to be seated with his trunk tall. He's going to rotate back and launch the ball out. Me, as the person, I'm going to have the dowel rod, or I'm going to knock right where I see on the measuring tape exactly where that ball landed. I'm going to toss it back after I get my measurement and record it, and I'm going to have him perform it on the other side. Now, that's that for the isolated, segmented trunk throw, okay? So the next one for the shot toss is going to be a half kneeling. Now, when we put the athlete down on the knee, we can actually get the hips a little bit more involved. So what Ian's going to do, if he's going to be performing a shot toss from his right side, he's going to get down on the pad on his right knee. Now, his entire body is behind the line, including his front toe. And what he's going to do is he's going to rotate back, and he's going to perform a shot toss just like he did when he was seated. And I'm going to measure where it lands. So go ahead and perform it. Pop. Boom. Right where that lands, I'm going to get that measurement, and I'm going to track both sides. Remember, the side that's throwing, that knee is down. Now, the final progression to this, we're going to actually have Ian come up onto his feet. So we're going to measure force from the ground, getting the entire legs involved, right? Being able to push laterally up through the hips, through the trunk, and let that ball sling. And we're going to get a full, accurate measurement from that. So the big thing that I try to tell guys here, we're going to get both the right and left-hand side. Make sure that you line up laterally so you're actually perpendicular. Your hips are perpendicular to the line. You're going to want to make sure that when you set up, your feet are behind the line. Now, we want to encourage the athlete that if they fall forward or fall over a line, that's completely fine. Their back leg stays anchored. So they're here, and then they're going to push off. Now the ball releases. Now they can release the back leg, and if they have to, they're going to slightly fall forward. So don't throw it crazy far. Just give them an example of how you're going to throw it there with the shot toss. Boom. And as you can see, just like we did before, I'm going to measure exactly where it landed. I'm going to get an accurate reading of both sides. And then what we're going to do at the end of your training or in between your training, these are metrics that we want to continue to measure to make sure, not only from the standpoint that we want to see increasing, but we also want to be able to identify if there's any imbalances between those three different throws where we get the entire kinetic chain involved in this testing. So there you have it, guys, for the med ball shot toss test.